Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome once again to Live at the Waterhole. We're first up. We're at the Rosie's Pan in the Olifants West Reserve in the Greater Kruger. My name is Ralph Kirsten. And what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animal thirsts and cool off. And as always, please don't forget that this is a live and I'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. Wild Earth website and registering. Conversation on X, formerly known as using the hashtag WildEarth. See, what would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on code as you see it on your screen. All right, so it was a lovely start there at Rosie's Pan in the Greater Kruger Park with that seemingly individual bull elephant just having a bit of a graze. But what a sighting this is. Look at all of these bulls here at Old Donyo in East Africa. There's a youngster there. I was almost thinking, is this a breeding herd? But I think it might be a young bull in amongst these old chaps. And the zebras, they do seem to want to come in for a drink, but maybe this time there's too many bulls for them to push out. And, oh, look at this bull here in the foreground. He's got one tusk that's going forward and one that's going backwards. And it looks like there's a little bit of irritation within the group. He's got a huge tear in his ear. I don't believe I've seen this guy before. Maasai giraffe looking on as well. Definitely going to wait his turn, that's for sure. But the zebra do look insistent that they do want to push forward. This could get interesting. Quite a few clouds around, rather overcast. There's a big system that's come up from Cape Town. It's heading up the east coast of South Africa. Might hit the Greater Kruger area in the next 5 days to a week or so. Not sure if there'll be any rain to it, but there's definitely going to be colder temperatures, that's for sure. You hear those zebra calling off in the background. So Mercedes Bean saying, greetings Ralph, Wild Earth crew and chatters. Happy Friday. Well, yeah, happy Friday back at you, Mercedes Bean. And nice to have you on board again. And also saying that the twisted tusk has returned. So you've obviously seen him before. I don't recall having seeing him. Maybe it was one of the days that I wasn't on the Waterhole show. Unless I'm just forgetting. And I think it's the first time. And Clarence Byram saying, have you ever intervened in Mother Nature when it comes to infants being killed for food? So Clarence, generally, we don't like to intervene unless it is something that was created by humans in the first place. So when there's the likes of snares or any kind of poaching incidents, you know, that's been caused by humans, then generally we'll intervene. But in the case of infanticide or animals killing other animals or injuring them, etc., generally let nature take its course, because yes, it might be sad that there's an injured animal or something that's being killed by something else or whatever it might be. You know, that starts to then form food for a host of other animals as well, which may not have got that food if that incident didn't occur. So we generally leave that to take its course. And Catherine saying, we see this guy with a backwards tusk a lot. Okay, well, that's interesting because, as I say, I think I might have just missed him on the times I've been here. It does look like the zebra are getting a little bit frustrated and impatient and starting to push a bit more forward, but I don't think they're going to be pushing out these bulls. But let's see. You never know. And Joanne Mello saying that I've never seen that bull before with a twisted tusk or the one pointing backwards. So, yeah, some people have seen him, some haven't. I think it's all a question of timing, because a lot of people may see 1 ton almost on a daily basis. And the times that we come on between 12 and 2, maybe just miss him on those occasions. But we have seen him quite regularly. I just can't recall seeing this guy with a one backward tusk. I'm sure I would have remembered him, because that is quite special and so quite easy to identify. And you may think, why is that he's got a strange tusk. It's very similar to humans. You know, some people have straight teeth. Some people have too many teeth. Some people have forward-facing teeth and all sorts of differences in them. And it's exactly the same with elephants. Each individual will have its own specific genetics and their own way that their tusk will grow. No two will be the same. And we have seen there's also one bull here. I think I did see him. There's one that's got a rather large tusk. He could have even been borderline big tusker, but he's only got one tusk. The other one's seemingly broken off, and I would guess that's through fighting with other males. The little foal there in amongst the zebra. They really do look like they want to move in and have a drink. That's for sure. They might even start taking a chance. There goes one. But they might get a backlash from these elephants. Hopefully not. You can see that bull with the two tusks in opposite directions, just on the left of the waterhole there. He's just in frame. See, and previously we've seen that when there's only 2 or 3 elephants, the zebras, they do tend to push forward and aren't that bothered. But now that there's so many of them, I think they're a little bit more cautious. I've actually noticed with the zebra here in East Africa, they tend to have stripes almost like the mountain zebra, and the mountain zebra don't have a shadow stripe, but these guys have a very faint one, which I think is just more of a geographical location in terms of their genetics. Releasing of gas there by one of the elephants. And obviously zebra being hindgut fermenters as well, they often release gas themselves. Very often when they run or they kick, simultaneously expel the wind. A bit of movement here from the elephants. It's like they're trying to push the zebra back. A few of them now getting a chance. And Joanne Mello was referring to that guy with the one forward, the one backward-facing tusk, saying that it doesn't seem to hinder him any way. No, it definitely doesn't. I don't think that's a real problem. We did see one at one stage that I think they were pointing almost straight down and they're almost going back towards its neck. And then there was another one that we had that they crossed over each other and then quite difficult for the trunk. Sort of had to go over the top of the tusks. Oh, the zebra now moving forward. Sandy asking, is the smaller Ellie at the age of being on his own with the other bull Ellies? Yeah, he's a youngster, but that's generally about the age that they do start sort of moving away from the breeding herds. And maybe just followed or has been moving with one of these bulls now that they've all congregated here. I doubt that these all move together. There's probably a couple of them that may, but I think it's just a congregation now here around the waterhole. And Sandy also saying, finally a little foal with the zebras. Yes. Lovely to see them. And you see that lovely sort of baby coat of theirs. Very brown as opposed to black. And they start losing that color as they get older. Lots of biting and kicking between the zebbies. You can see the zebra aren't too comfortable. They are being cautious of the elephants. Lots of wafting of the ears of the Ellies as well, a good indication that it is still rather warm, even though it's in winter. Very close to the equator, so they don't really get much of a winter here in Kenya. Very special sighting, this. So many big bulls. And the zebra is still trying to push forward. A lot of them now actually getting a drink in. It looks like all the zebra I see here, at least, have all got their tails intact. None of them had them bitten off by their mates. So there's also an eland or two, I think, moving near to that Maasai giraffe on the right-hand side. And Alex saying that it looks like there's hardly any water left. Well, that'll be these elephants that have just about sucked it dry. But no worries. I'm sure they will replenish it. This waterhole is filled up on a regular basis. And how many elephants do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I can see 7, but there were more. It's maybe between 8 and 10 or so of them. So you're looking at potentially over 2,000 liters that have been taken out here in the last little while, coupled with the zebra. So it's a hefty amount. So Mercedes Bean saying Ellies are like people that take too long at the coffee shops. Yeah, all those guys that order one coffee and stay for 5 hours. Yeah, especially the bulls. The breeding herds tend to sort of spend less time just milling about at the waterhole. And we can see that Ellie now with the tusk pointing backwards and the big rip in its ear. A little bit frustrated with the zebra. Not happy that they're around. Nice zebra call there. Now, of course, zebra can run up to about 65 kilometers an hour, which is a decent speed. If you think lions can run up to about 80 kilometers an hour, but the zebra combine that fast running with excellent stamina, so they can keep that up for a long time, whereas the lions can't keep it up for as long. And the zebra, they're also able to run in zigzagging motions, enabling them to evade lions that are chasing them, and they've also got an almighty kick, as we see them doing to each other. But a lion that mistimes the attack as it goes through can land itself with a broken jaw or any other broken bones, which can often lead to death as well. So it's quite a dangerous prey for them to take on, and they do need to get in good practice. And that's why when they're little cubs and they're chasing each other around and practicing the type of ankle tap that we see them doing, this is a good method that they use on zebra as well. But a very important way for them to attack a zebra too is to get close enough, but just out of range of the kick, so that the zebra actually does kick, and as it retrieves its legs, then go in for the attack and get onto the rump, and so missing the kick altogether. It's kind of like a MMA fighter or a boxer. You wait for that punch to come sort of just out of reach, And as it comes, after he's thrown the punch, then go in as he's retreating. And that's when they, sort of normally land those knockout punches. And so it's the same with the lions. But if they get it wrong, they can get knocked out themselves. Now, what a sight to behold, all the tusks of these magnificent beasts. This is truly in the land of the giants. Now, Jean Bracht saying, good morning, Seattle, Washington. Welcome aboard, Jean, and a happy 4th of July for yesterday. I hope you had a wonderful day. And Robin saying, which animal have you never heard vocalize? Robin, I would have to say giraffe. I've heard grunts and snorts, and I have heard that they hum at night, but I've never heard that hum myself, unless I've just never realized that it was giraffe. But that's one animal that I've never heard a squeak out of, except for those sort of grunts and snorts. But other than that, zero. Goody, the little youngster, still being allowed to get in the mix, get himself a drink. Maybe the old boys are looking after him, mentoring him, showing him the way. You can sometimes even have take a younger bull under their wing and almost protect him as well when there's any issue in the other bulls. Okay, so what a wild sighting this is, but we're going to change of place. I'm sure back here at some stage. Let's head here, the Tosha National Park and Okukuyu. Herd of elephants. Oryx on the other side, as well as some night as well. Beautiful, clear day as well. There, as usual, one of our swimmers, the oryx, going into the water. On the left. And quite a few of the elephants now just enjoying a bit of shade. That leadwood on the left, iconic tree that does form part of many beautiful photographs that are taken here from the. Such a lovely contrast. Well, there are chalets right here as a bit of view over this waterhole. At the chalet, watching the animals go today as well as at night, floodlit. Was it as such for so long? Animals to it, and even when there's a bit of a noisy crowd, there's no effect on it whatsoever. Makes a lovely stop in here in the desert of Namibia, but we're going to back time. We're going to head back, Donyo, where we've still got the old club mixed in with monsters, enjoying at the water. You see there's still a significant amount of water. So it doesn't look like it's in any completely yet, anyway. So just jumping backwards and forwards a little bit between Oldonyo now and Okukuyu. Seems like the little breeding herd has moved off. They were resting up in the shade there underneath the leadwood. Now mainly springbok. Looks like the oryx have also moved off. I'm hoping we get to see some black-faced impala, endemic to Namibia and southern Angola. I'm also hoping at some stage we get a Cory bustard coming down for a drink. They often do come and drink here. Just a constant flow of springbok coming in there. Some leaving, some arriving. This being the perfect habitat for springbok and probably the most numerous animal on the reserve itself. Looks like there is a bunch of animals straight off over the other side of the waterhole. I think it might be a group of oryx or gemsbok. Here, a little grebe calling now. It's one of the resident pair, as well as what sounded like an Egyptian goose. So just going in to get a little bit of a better view in on these springbok. So also just a little bit of news coming out of Etosha National Park, which is Namibia's greatest wildlife sanctuary. And they say that Scorpion Hill puts a sting in Etosha's poaching pandemic. Rhinos and elephants are arguably the most significant animals and high-value species in Namibia, both ecologically and economically. But with the ever-increasing illegal hunting epidemic, we may very well drive these magnificent animals into local extinction. Overall, wildlife is the driver of the tourism industry, and this industry has a major socio-economic influence on Namibia's affluence. It offers a plethora of benefits, not only by creating job opportunities, but also by alleviating poverty and increasing national development as a whole. So, what if all these benefits were to collapse due to the ongoing poaching? We need to ensure that a holistic approach to conservation and development would lead to a win win situation for people, biodiversity, and tourism. And recently, the Environment and Tourism Minister, Pohamba Shifeta, inaugurated the latest asset in Etosha National Park's anti poaching arsenal, the Scorpion built anti poaching patrol camp. The Scorpion built area, Scorpion Hill in English, is known for having a high concentration of rhino. However, the numbers are dropping fast as this area has been recorded to have the highest number of rhino poached per year in Namibia for a few years running. So the national parks are one of the key tourism draw cards in Namibia, and none as renowned as Etosha. The Etosha National Park hosts a total surface area of about 2,227 million hectares and a boundary fence of about 850 kilometers long, making activities such as patrolling and anti-poaching operations exceptionally challenging. So the camp was constructed by the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, or the MET, through the Protected Areas System Strengthening Project, with significant financial support from the United Nations Development Program and Yahoo Japan, resulting in a total allocation of $4 million US, which is 50 million Namibian dollars. This may seem like a lot, but at least 70% of the budget has already been spent on law enforcing and anti-poaching measures. Expenses have included water provision systems, water tanks and trailers, camping equipment, sanitation facilities, and solar power. When it comes to the actual field work, the budget has covered communication devices, forensic equipment, a national anti-poaching awareness campaign, and the training of prosecutors and investigating officers. But it doesn't stop there. The project has also funded the construction and observation tower at Scorpion Bult and the construction of the anti-poaching training center at the Waterberg National Park, which is south of Etosha. The camp will house game patrol units, rangers, police and defense force members, MET officials, community volunteers, enabling the deployment of law enforcement personnel and acts as a strategic point of command and coordination of anti-poaching activities. The work of the anti-poaching personnel is not an easy one and requires them to make many sacrifices. They must leave their families behind for prolonged periods, spend many days in the bush, walk hundreds of kilometers in the wilderness, and risk their lives to both armed poachers and dangerous wild animals, such as lions and elephants, as well as black rhino. We therefore need to appreciate their efforts. And I've been a big part of anti-poaching in the past as well, and also being a guide myself. It's very much like living the life of a soldier, being away from your family for prolonged periods. And very often these anti-poaching personnel are not paid very much. So I'm glad that there's been a big investment in it. And hopefully they can give them better conditions, pay them more, and so that they can, at least get something back for risking their lives, both against those poachers and with wild animals. But a wonderful initiative, and I hope that it starts to end the scourge of poaching that has increased in the last few years in Namibia. And with I think it's 1/3 of the world's population of black rhino, all in Namibia itself. It's obviously a stronghold for them, and so we hope they get it under control. So Jive Bunny saying the Curry Bustard favors the far side of this waterhole. Yep, they definitely do. They come in from the opposite side there, and then they don't really come around this side. I think they're a little bit more shy. One of the only animals that really do sort of have an issue with the people at the viewing deck. But they do still come in on the other side, and it's interesting to see when they do, when there's springbok near to them, and it just shows, in relativity, how big they are. They stand taller than a springbok, which is incredible. So Christian Hall would say it would be sweet to see a cheetah on one of these cams someday. Christian, yes, it would be. Here, there is a very high population of cheetah in Namibia, and one of the biggest free roaming populations of cheetah anywhere in the world. I think only bettered by the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, but more so to the south. And where there's a lot of cheetah present is more so in the middle of the pan itself, so a little bit more towards Halali. I've never seen a cheetah here. And one thing we must also remember with cheetah is that they only drink water once every 10 days or so. And sometimes they don't drink for weeks, if not months. It depends on how much they've fed, and because they get a lot of the moisture requirement that they need from the animals that they feed on. So you very rarely see cheetah drinking. So when you do, it's a really special occasion. Then Danny was saying, "What a pleasure it is to know that there are all these plans in place." Yeah, and well, it's already been sort of underway for quite some time now, and that's why just reporting on it and just noting that I think it began when the poaching increased a couple of years ago, and they obviously identified that if there was an intervention, they could have spiraled out of control, and they could have lost a lot more than they have. So they've intervened and they've slowed the poaching. Namibia has had a very good record in the past when it comes to poaching, but as with anything, there's people that have started to note the amount of rhino. Luckily for Namibia, I think one of the reasons maybe is that they don't have many white rhino. White rhino is a much easier species to target than black rhino. Firstly, they move around in open areas. Um, they're not very aggressive. They're almost like cattle in some ways. So it's actually a very easy target. Whereas black rhino, they're a little bit more unpredictable. They do sort of still move very much in territories, so it can be quite easy if the poachers understand the bush. I'm not going to give too much away, but for that particular reason. But it's a lot more dangerous for them, and I think there's probably been a few fatalities on the poachers' side as well when it comes to black rhino, because they pretty much skrik van niks, as we say in Afrikaans. They're scared of nothing. So I think there's been a few poachers on the back end of a black rhino's horn. But yeah, unfortunately, a very unpopulated country itself, where there's only about 2.5 million people across the entire country. So it's about 2 people per square kilometer if you look at the country as a whole. So vast areas are very difficult to patrol. And so when they put up these towers, especially in the likes of Etosha here, you can see for miles and miles and miles. And one of the reasons why they actually set up these camps, Okukuyu, Halali, and Namutoni, was the German army. And they're 60 kilometers between each other, and they were able to communicate just literally with mirrors, and using that and sort of sending a Morse code signal with the mirroring of the sun. 60 kilometers apart. So they were able to communicate 120 kilometers between them from Okukuyu to Namatoni just by using these mirrors. They called this device a helio, and there's actually a waterhole that's named after that. And that's near to Halali, which is the middle camp in Etosha. So with that being said, it's just that they can view over vast distances, and so that Scorpion built would, be able to see for miles and miles in many different directions. So that, especially at night, which is very often when the poachers do come through, they'll be able to pick up the lights and then obviously go and get in on them. So a lot of intelligence and information gathering as well within the communities, because that's where, bordering on the park, that's generally where the information comes from. And sometimes, very often, the community members are involved in the poaching as well. It's normally foreigners that come in and influence them with money, and then sometimes even going into the officials as well. But it hasn't been nearly as bad as in the Kruger National Park. But as I say, there it's mainly down to the white rhino as opposed to here being the black. All right. I think now that these oryx have gone in for a little swim, that's wonderful. But we're going to change of place and we're going to go back to South Africa, and this time to the Madikwe Game Reserve and Jamala, where we've got lots of elephants once again. That's wonderful. Nice big herd of impala as well on the opposite side. It's going to make for wonderful viewing. There's lots of little youngsters in amongst this group. Nice herd of wildebeest as well. The waterhole is pretty jam-packed. That is wonderful. So Mercedes Bean was saying, thanks, Ralph, for sharing this very important info. Yep, I do try to find out any news of all the different reserves that we're watching. Madikwe, I haven't been able to find too much, but I'll still keep scratching around as always. And Lady Macbeth was saying that Namibia has a good record when it comes to poaching, reiterating what I was saying. Absolutely, Lady Macbeth. Um, but yeah, there has been an increase in the last few years. And so good that they're getting a handle on it and they're investing in the personnel and the infrastructure and everything else that is required to keep it all under control. Christian Hall was asking, are there fish in the waterhole? If so, what are the common fish species? As we can hear quite a bit of wind coming through. But Christian, generally in all of these waterholes, you could almost guarantee that every single one of them probably has catfish in it. I haven't seen too many rises from them. You know, they don't have fully formed gills. They almost have like half lungs, half gills. So they do need to take little sucks of air every now and then. And I'm not so sure there are any fish in this waterhole, but I would be surprised if there weren't. But generally, in these natural waterholes, you would have the likes of catfish, tilapia, and then you could even have yellowfish as well and little silverfish too. Those are the natural fish. Bass, carp, both the grass carp and your normal mirror, and all the different sort of subspecies of carp. They are all exotic. Bass coming from America, the carp coming from China, and I think actually imported from Britain though, but originally coming from China. They're actually quite bad for our natural ecosystems, and the same goes for trout, taking over the natural species of yellowfish, largemouth and smallmouth, as well as silverfish. So I prefer to bat the cause of our naturally occurring species. I know that there are a lot of anglers and fishermen that do enjoy bass fishing, myself included. But they're an exotic species that are aggressive breeders and hunters, and they do mess with the local ecosystem. So I'd prefer for us not to have any of those in our naturally occurring water systems. But and even in the sort of private farm dams, etc., it's you see that little baby getting helped out of the water there. I think he got stuck a bit. And he's going back for more. There's a very slippery slope on the edge of the water there, but look at him. He wants to get in. He's not scared. There we go. But some of the others getting pushed out of the way. I think it's all about this little baby. Yeah, I think he's just being a little bit boisterous, and mommy's not too happy about it. But yeah, I'm definitely not an advocate for the likes of trout, bass, and carp. Although I like fishing for all of them, I would rather have the likes of catfish, tilapia, and yellowfish as our natural heritage. Oh, that little youngster is getting really boisterous on the right there. Looks like he's up for some fun. So I think that little one's had a bit of a telling off from mum. It's a nice close up on these individuals. I wonder if they're coming over to get some of their mineral salts and their supplements. Got to scratch away a bit of the elephant dung on the surface. Nice bit of vocalizing there from the Ellies, probably a youngster. So Victor was asking, would an elephant calf also sleep standing up? Not really, Victor. They don't have such a big frame and such heavy bones, so you will see them lying down a lot. And that's why the breeding herds, they do, when they have tiny little babies, especially, they need to move and take regular breaks so that the little babies can have little sleeps. And they normally do that under the shade of their mom if there's no real shade around. Um, and so generally, no, you won't see them standing up. they lie down altogether. But right through into adulthood, they can also lie down, but very often sleep standing up as well. So Joanne Mello asking if I've ever been saltwater fishing. Yep, absolutely. Deep sea fishing. I like going in the estuaries as well. I live pretty much on the banks of the Cowie River, which is in Port Alfred, in the Eastern Cape. So we've got lots and lots of rivers, but all estuaries leading into the ocean. And we go fishing regularly. It's one of my favorite pastimes. So Christian Hall saying in my area in the US, there have been situations where people have released goldfish into ponds and such, which they completely take over. So it is essentially an open fish cull on them. Yes, absolutely. We've also had in the different freshwater systems in South Africa where, we've been fishing and suddenly you catch a huge goldfish. But I do believe a goldfish is part of the carp family. So they sort of live in similar conditions. And they can become vermin. So, it's not obviously the fish's fault. And for me, it's very similar with bass, trout, and carp. I would prefer for them not to be, and a lot of folk even try to protect them in South Africa, where they're an exotic species, and we're forgetting about the endemic species that they're hindering and very often can even wipe out, especially the likes of yellowfish. And trout fishermen are very ardent in their craft. I think it's a wonderful sport. Um, and an art, but I don't think it's fair to be replacing yellowfish with trout that are naturally occurring. We almost want to bring international sort of fish into our South African waters and make it like those places, but it's not. So I would prefer if those rivers were returned to their natural form and state and increasing the populations of yellowfish in those areas where trout abound. The Christian Hall saying, does South Africa allow open fishing of the invasive species? Yes, in fact, they do. But it's the local property owners that are ardent trout fishermen, etc. And, you even have catch and release of bass, which I find is ridiculous in South Africa, as well as with trout. I think every fish that you catch of those should be taken out. But they're so into that sport that they're trying to protect that to the detriment of our natural heritage. So I don't think it should be allowed. And just to add on to that, I mean, you think of the likes of Dahlstrom. It's sort of almost tried to turn into a mini Scotland, which I like the heritage. I'm married to a Scottish woman, but I just don't like the idea of trying to turn a South African natural area into something that is foreign. And all of those rivers have been heavily stocked now with trout, to the detriment of the local indigenous species. So, some might say, well, that brings in a lot of tourism, etc. Yeah, but the yellowfish would have got 3 to 5 or even 10 times the size of those trout, put on a much bigger fight, and actually be a lot more sport for the fishermen. The only downside is that they don't taste as good. But I don't see why we need to change a South African natural heritage rich area into something foreign. But it's well underway and it's well entrenched, and so it's accepted. But I don't think it should be. kudu female on the opposite side. Looks like there's a couple more going to come and join her. So Christian Hall saying very unfortunate. Honestly, it would be far cooler to be able to fish for native species. Absolutely. I'd like to go to Scotland to fish for trout and salmon. But as I say, I want to turn a South African rich natural heritage area into something that's foreign, which they have done. They've totally transformed it. But yes, that's the state of things. But in my own opinion, and if I had my way, I would eradicate all the bass and trout and reintroduce the natural species and encourage the growth of them and the fishing for them. Yeah, but I suppose that's just me. Of course, bass coming from the Americas, I believe, and also a wonderful sport fish, but again, exotic. So I would prefer to go to America to go fishing for bass, not having bass sort of out competing our local species and aggressively targeting them as well. And in a lot of those areas where bass are prevalent, there's also tilapia and bream, as we call them, or kirpe, and they outcompete them as well. Very similar in their habits, and a much more aggressive breeder as well as hunter as well. Oh, there's a little bit of a disagreement. Somebody getting out of line. It's that young bull. You see, it's generally the young bulls that get told off, either saying or doing something they shouldn't be. The Jungle Jim asking, is there ever a need for elephants to fight over food? Jungle Jim, generally not. Um, I haven't really, I can't recall seeing a fight started over food between elephants. You know, when they go for the likes of marula fruit, there's generally an abundance of it. Um, The only time I've seen them fight, it's not over food, but it's around a food source, is because you've got, potentially bulls coming to, a spot where there is lots of a very nice food source, such as marulas. And then they sort of just have a bit of a dominance fight. Um, and the females maybe just getting irritated with the boisterous youngsters because they're congregating, much like they do at a waterhole, for that particular resource. But never have I seen them fighting over, or like grabbing a branch and two of them both want the same branch. Or the same piece, the same fruit, or whatever it is. So I have never seen that, but that's not to say it's never happened. I just think that with their very varied diet, there's not really much reason for them to fight over one thing in particular. And so they just generally do that over mating rights, dominance, and so on. So Greg was wondering if calves ever get into it with each other. Um, Greg, it's very much like human children. They can have a go at each other, but it's they're not really big enough, strong enough. They don't have this sort of same hormones as adults, so it generally doesn't last long, and it's normally more noise than anything else. And what we notice is there's more play between the youngsters, wrestling and climbing on each other, and but sometimes it can lead to one of them obviously getting a bit hurt when the play gets a bit rough. And then there can be a little bit of consternation between them, but it doesn't last long. And you often see the adult females stepping in and splitting them up very quickly. Never really goes further than that. I've never seen a terrible fight between calves, but yeah, they can have a little go at each other, just like they can chase birds and antelope and all sorts. They can also have a go at each other, but it's normally more of a laughing situation than anything else. It's quite funny to watch. moved on back to Okuyu in Namibia, and in the background, I think there's actually a scaly feathered finch that's been calling. Beautiful little bird. Not many people have actually seen that little bird. Nice and calm, and you'll just relax and enjoy some of the sounds of the bush. The animals come back. You can hear the crows calling. There's a great go-away bird calling, getting in the mix. Okay, so a little bit quiet here, even though lovely bush sounds. But I think let's change of place, going back to Madikwe, but this time to Tau. Where we've got an elephant bull really getting stuck in the mud here and enjoying the lovely greenery inside the waterhole as well. Nice big herd of wildebeest in the back, but all just relaxing, ruminating. A couple of waterbuck there off on the left. Crocodiles out of the water. There's 3 of them. I think there are supposed to be 5 here. I've never seen all of them together at once. They're now lovely to see 3 together at least. These are the times when I feel the elephants are at their happiest, in the water and feeding on the lovely greenery within. Just wonderful. Gonna have to put on the diff lock as he moves through the mud here. They don't seem to have much trouble. And Joanne Mello was saying, love seeing the crocs in the background. Yeah, always lovely to see them out of the water. And you can see there with their mouths open as well. They've been sunning themselves for some time, I think. So they're getting nice and warm. So Hey 40 was asking, what's my favorite animal? Hey 40, it's a difficult one. It's kind of like asking me which is my favorite child. um, I have to say that I do have a real affinity to elephants. I really love being around them, near to them. especially the desert elephants, which I've spent many years tracking and following. So, those specific groups of elephants are some of the most amazing to be around. And I think it's still some of um, the best wildlife experiences that I've had, some of them. Um, but, everything's got its sort of enduring or endearing part to them. The likes of cheetah, love being around them, especially when they're hunting. Leopards, lions, yeah, when they're active and not sleeping. I don't like sleeping lions, which they generally do most of the time. So I think a lot of the smaller animals as well. I've been lucky enough to be around caracal, um, and spend quite a lot of time with them as well, which is quite unusual. And then the likes of obviously special species always is very interesting and lovely to be around. um, in Walvis Bay in Namibia a few times, having spotted the mola molas or the sunfish, incredible species. That's something truly special. The heavy-side dolphins, which are tiny and endemic to Namibia, uh, very, very special too. Um, the likes of the brown hyena on the beaches, on the Skeleton Coast, the desert lions as well as the black rhino within Damaraland. Um, yeah, everything. I mean, I could just carry on. The honey badgers, every time, their tenacity and their craziness. Um, yeah, lots of special birds as well. I like being around the hornbills. For me, they're just such almost a carefree bird, even in the way that they fly. Very well represented on the likes of the Lion King with Zazu, um, but I think slightly a little bit too hung up, Zazu, whereas I think in general the hornbills are a little bit more carefree. So, yeah, but in general, it's just lovely to be in nature. Some of the most amazing calls, jackals when it's heading towards sunset, and then hyenas calling as well, and of course the roar of a lion really just puts the cherry on top. And then the likes of nightjars calling as well during the night, and the little owlets from the scops owl to barred owl, and the rest, white-faced scops. See this guy now really moving through the mud. I think the sum of the collective is really what makes it all special. And I find it difficult to pick one thing out. I often get asked these questions, and I find it more and more difficult to answer the longer I've been in and around these wilderness areas. When I first started out, it's very easy. You say honey badger, but the more you've been in different wilderness situations, whether it's on foot, in a vehicle, it sort of broadens your horizons and makes you think that, as I say, the collective is what's special and not any individuals per se. So Jupiter was asking, would these plants in the water be more nutritious than the ones out of the water? I think potentially now, Jupiter, because you can see how green it is. So, it's very dry currently in Madikwe, and it is in winter. So that's maybe why the elephants are coming, to get into this greenery, because the elephants will very often go in search of specific areas as well as plants in winter. And they also go for the inner cambium of bark of the trees, where there's lots of nutrients hidden within the tree itself, and they know that. Also, with the likes of corkwoods or comifera, they will uproot them to get to the very sweet roots. And obviously, this is also currently probably one of the nutritious plants that you can get. See in the background, very brown and dry. So I think being in the water here is probably currently one of the more nutritious areas to feed. And hey, 40 saying too many to choose from. I love meerkats. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's another one. And meerkats, mongoose, it's just that those small predators are incredible. Um, from banded mongoose to dwarf mongoose, to the more solitary of the mongoose, the yellow mongoose, the slender mongoose, the water mongoose. I just find it all incredible. I do love tracks of the animals, and being able to identify an animal just from seeing the track is one of the most enlightening things that I've done, and skills that I've acquired being in the bush. Um, and obviously worked my way up that there's not many tracks that I don't know. And when I find one now that I don't know, it intrigues me. I take photos of it, and I won't stop until I find what it was. And then I know it from then on. So I think that's one of the more exciting things for me now. And also seeing a bird, for instance, that I don't know, or hearing a bird that I I don't know either. Then it's exciting because we see a lot of the stuff that we know about, and as soon as there's something that confuses me, and very often it can be a bird that's given a different call or something like that, and then but you go in search of what is it, and I just can't stop until I find it and find out what it was. So that's what's exciting for me in the bush now, after 25 odd years working in the bush as a professional guide. um, and Chan 58 asking, would the crocs try and go for this guy in the water? Chan 58, I never say never. Once again, through experience, you say never. That will never happen, and then you see something that happens exactly like that. Yeah, I've made that mistake many times, especially when I was first started out guiding, and folks would ask me, "Do you get this kind of bird that occurs here?" And I would say, "Nope." And we go over the next rise, and there's the exact bird that I said doesn't occur there. And we must remember they have wings, so they can go anywhere they like. So I would say that uh, most likely, probably not, that the crocodiles would go for this elephant because it's just too big for them. And it's also in reasonably shallow water. So you know, the hunting technique of a crocodile is literally being able to drag an animal underwater and drown it. And there's pretty much zero to no chance of them being able to do this with this elephant. But who knows? It's probably possible, but highly unlikely. Lazy was asking, do elephants ever get stuck in the water? Lazy, yes, it has happened, but it's generally where there's some kind of pit or so on that the elephants really can't get out of, and they fall in there. But with him having walked in here through the mud and so on, they don't really get stuck. It's just a bit of an effort to walk through the mud, but they generally do it with not too much effort. And there he goes. I think he's had enough. He's slowly making his way out of there. See the black-winged stilt here in the middle of your screen. It's just working through the shallows as well. Common moorhens, the blackbirds, the red bulls, a bit of white under the tail. And we see those crocodiles, and oh, the blue wildebeest. Looks like they're all up. So getting a nice sort of close-up view on these crocodilians. Always look menacing, but with a smile at the same time. Would you say that's an evil smile? I would think so. So Jupiter was saying not necessarily evil, but very menacing. Yeah, well, I don't know. The crocodiles are pretty evil, especially when they're in the water and you can't see them. So yeah, menacing, but I mean they're obviously just filling their particular niche. So I don't mean it in a nasty way whatsoever. It's just I'm very scared of crocodiles. Not when they're out of the water like this, but when I know that there's crocs in the water, I'm very scared around the edges of the water because obviously you can very easily be taken. So, yeah, very careful. And in those moments, I can think that they're quite evil, but that's wildlife. It's the same with elephants and lions and leopards and hyenas, etc. They've all got their place. And I don't mean it in any way in a nasty kind of way at all. So Hey 40 was asking what's the rarest animal that I've seen. Hey 40, I would think maybe pangolins, and I've seen a few on a number of occasions. I also work closely with Africat in Namibia with their Aardvark project. Um, so I've been able to see them on numerous occasions. I don't think many people have seen aardvarks like that. It's normally the very rare fleeting chance, but I would have to say that's probably one of the more rare species and not many people have ever seen. Another one is a riverine rabbit. I've seen that in the Eastern Cape, and also very rare species. it can be very easily mistaken just for a Cape scrub hare, but obviously it's not a hare, it's a rabbit. But very similar coloration, and much more rare. And I would be remiss if I did not mention a zonkey. Has anybody ever seen a zonkey? That's a mix between a zebra and a donkey. And there's a couple of them roaming around Namibia, especially near to Swakopmund, and the coastal towns. But yeah, it's obviously an interbred, so it doesn't quite count. But it's still very rare, and not many people have seen them either. And just going from the interwebs, according to what's Africa's rarest animal, and they've got them a list of 8 of them. And in order, the Ethiopian wolf is in fact Africa's most endangered carnivore and the continent's only wolf species. Very interesting. I'd love to see that. Number 2 is the pangolin. So me saying that, I think it's probably one of the rarest animals. Black rhino, white rhino, mountain gorilla, African wild dog, African penguin, and the Rothschild giraffe. So I haven't seen an Ethiopian wolf or a mountain gorilla, and I've seen all the rest. So that's great. But anyway, folks, we're slowly heading towards the end of the show. I hope you've all enjoyed it and the discussions and the chats and what we've been talking about. Oh, there's another crocodile. So there's number 4. But please don't go anywhere because there's going to be lots of wildlife scenes coming your way. Later on will be the Sunset Safari as well. So lots of action there. Naturalists out and about trying to see what they can find for you. And once again, live at the Waterhole, we'll be back here tomorrow. It won't be me, but I'll be back soon enough. So I've enjoyed this stint, and I hope you've enjoyed me hosting it. As you see, these bulls, as always, going for a little bit of argy-bargy. Lovely to end the show with that. So that's it from me for now, folks. Cheers for now. Give it horns. Bush greetings. Ciao.
Well, a very, very good afternoon to everybody, and thank you once again for joining us on our highlight show, coming directly here from Juma Private Game Reserve here in the northern Sabi Sands. My name is Cedric, and behind the camera with me, we've got Muscles and Paw. And well, for the next half an hour, of course, we're going to discuss exactly what we've been seeing over the last 24 hours from yesterday's Sunset Safari.